Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, ICE and Border Patrol agents have been caught in so many lies now that we just need to assume it just needs to be our default position that they're just lying about everything. And until they can prove to us that they're telling the truth, we should just automatically assume this is a lie anytime we hear anything out of their mouths. And I have a bunch of recent examples that I want to share with you guys, including one case in which a couple agents have now been suspended and they're under investigation because their eyes were or lies were so easily disproven. And this is important for you guys to see for a couple of reasons. And I really hope that you'll share this with everybody you know, because first of all, you're going to be able to present facts and details when other people try to defend this stuff. And then two, you guys will be able to explain to people why it's vital for community members to continue to document everything, to be out there recording everything that Trump's Gestapo is doing. That's why they're doing it, because they have been caught in lies, because they have been brutalizing people, and they would get away with it if not for people on the street recording them. So first up is a story that I mentioned that ended with these agents being suspended and under investigation. So here's one of the reports on this. So you probably had heard the initial version of the story that was given by puppy killer Christy Nome. As usual, she claimed, oh, the two ICE officers, they shot a man, and this was in Minnesota as well. But they said it was only after he attacked them. He attacked them with a broom, or I guess they said a couple people attacked them with a broom and a shovel. So this was this was absolutely necessary. So this situation, this occurred right in between the shootings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Thankfully, this man survived. And the man who was shot, he immediately was like, yeah, that's not what happened. He was saying, I was shot through a door. And it turns out that was completely true. He was telling the truth. Once again, they were lying. So the victim in all of this, who got shot in the leg, was a man named Julio Cesar Sosa Silas, I think is how you pronounce his name, 24 years old. He was in his apartment with the door shut. They chased him. He was trying to help this other man. He didn't know what was going on. Tried to help this other man who was being attacked by these agents and pulled him away. And then they started running. And the ICE officers chased him to his apartment and shot him through the door. Of course, Nome's department completely denied that. But here is a photo of his door. You can see the bullet hole there. And these lying jackasses could have killed children. He had his two young children. He has a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old child who were inside this apartment at the time. They had no idea where they were shooting at. I mean, you see how low that was on the door. What if one of the kids was in front of the door or behind the door? Right? Also, Sosa Silas, like I said, wasn't even the person that they were after. He wasn't even involved. The man that they were after and that they ended up arresting was outside. And yet they went to this apartment building. They tried to flush everyone out. They set off tear gas. And apparently it started seeping under the doors of other apartments. Well, one family had a 6-month-old baby and the baby stopped breathing. So this is another baby, not the one that you may have heard of that was in a vehicle that they tear gassed. This is another baby that had to be rushed to the emergency room because the baby couldn't breathe. So these Trump Gestapo, they are the criminals. They are the worst of the worst. So now there's these bogus assault charges against Sosa Silas and the other man. They have now been dismissed because the judge looked at the video evidence and he said, quote, or I think it may have been a woman. They said newly discovered evidence was materially inconsistent with the allegations. And the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, he issued a statement and he had to admit it. So he said, quote, a joint review by ICE and the Department of Justice of video evidence has revealed that sworn testimony provided by two separate officers appears to have made untruthful statements. Both officers have been immediately placed on administrative leave pending the completion of a thorough internal investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office is actively investigating these false statements. So he had to come out and admit it. Even DHS's mouthpiece, Tricia McJung-un, who's now leaving the department, she said in a statement, quote, lying under oath is a serious federal offense. Upon conclusion of the investigation, the officers may face termination of employment as well as potential criminal prosecution. I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but at least they're finally admitting some wrongdoing. But there's many other cases in which they lied. So here is another similar case I have to share with you guys. DHS's version of the story is completely falling apart. So here is this one. You might remember this one. I shared this story with you guys a while back. So this was a situation, there was like calls to 911. This shooting took place in Portland, Oregon. This was one day after Renee Good was shot and killed by Jonathan Ross. ICE agents said, oh, typical story. Oh, well, these people weaponized their vehicle. They tried to run over the ICE agents when we tried to take this man and woman into custody. So we shot at both of them because they tried to run us over. Okay. Unfortunately, there were no bystanders to take photos or to take video, but there is now surveillance video that they found from surrounding buildings. Now, these two people survived. They got away. They were both shot. The man was shot in the chest. The woman was hit in the arm. All of this went down in the parking lot of a medical building. So a lot of people in the medical building were calling 911 and saying, I don't know what's going on. There's shooting, there's people driving away, blah, blah, blah. So ICE had claimed that the man, his name is Luis Nino Mancado, that he and his girlfriend, I'm going to butcher her name, I know it, so Yorlenis Zambrano Contreras, they claimed these two were both Tren de Aragua, Venezuela gang members. How many times have we heard that before? DHS also said that Zambrano Contreras, the woman, was quote unquote involved in a shooting last year. Okay. None of that appears to be true. In court, the Justice Department attorney told the judge, quote, we're not suggesting Nino Mancado is a gang member. So they say, oh, they're Venezuelan gang members. And then they have to go to court and they know they're under oath and they know that they can lose their livelihood and they'll be disbarred. So then they tell the truth. Oh, well, we're not saying she's a gang member. You did say it. And an FBI affidavit said that DHS admitted that the girlfriend, she was supposedly involved in the shooting. Yeah, well, she was actually the victim. She was sexually assaulted and robbed. So these are the games that they play. This is the words play that they use. They use words like involved. So it insinuates that someone's guilty of a crime when actually they were the victim of the crime. So anyway, the man is still being held, the boyfriend. His girlfriend has been released. at least as of the time when I put this all together. And their cases are now making their way through the court system because she did admit that I can't remember if she overstayed a visa or she came here illegally. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. I have another story though, another brazen lie to share with you. This one, it would be laughable if it wasn't so sick. So, after ICE agents took 31-year-old Alberto Castaneda Mondragon, I think is how you pronounce it, to the hospital with injuries, they claimed, well, he got injured because he, quote, purposefully ran headfirst into a brick wall. Again, complete and total lie. So take a look. Here's a report on this. Not only was Mondragon racially profiled by Trump, his Gestapo, they fractured his skull in 8 places. This caused life-threatening hemorrhages in 5 areas of his brain. This man could have easily died. And then they left him in such dire condition that he couldn't even remember his own daughter. Well, he has now regained his memory, and he told reporters that ICE agents beat him in the head with those, the metal rods that they use to smash windows? They use it to smash their car windows in. That's what they beat him in. And when he was being beaten, he apparently was begging them to stop, and they laughed at him and hit him again. And then they took him to a detention facility with these injuries, didn't even take him to the hospital first, took him to the detention facility, and they beat him again. So the doctors and the nurses confirmed there was no way that these injuries were caused by him running into a wall, because he had fractures all over his skull. They were in the front, in the back, and on both sides. There's no way that their story made sense. And there was no reason for this man to even be arrested. He didn't even enter the US illegally. He came here on a valid work visa in 2022 and started his own construction company. So now he did overstay his visa, he admits that, but they didn't even know that until after they beat him, put him in the hospital, and almost killed him. So these sick bastards just pulled him over, nearly killed this man because he has brown skin. And it's not just their violence that they're lying about. So the Daily Beast reported on another story about a Honduran man. His name is Victor Manuel Carranza, excuse me. Yeah, Carranza, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Anyway, they falsely accused this man of being a child predator. I mean, this is just beyond sick. So the White House, on their official Twitter account, they posted a bunch of photos, bunch of different people that they had taken into custody. And among them was a photo of this man, and they claimed that he committed child sex crimes. In reality, he had been convicted of crimes, but it was larceny and identity theft. They have now since removed that post, but it just goes to show you, this is either incompetence at the highest level, or they're just liars, or they're just full of shit. And I don't know if you guys have heard about the ICE raid in Idaho. This is my next story I have to share with you guys. But residents there are pissed off because immigrants told the media and their attorneys, they did this raid and children were zip tied. Now, the local sheriff there denied this. He is fully on board, total MAGA sheriff. He was helping with all of this raid. They brought in a helicopter that flew over the area. They had police on horseback to ride around these people up. Well, either he lied, this sheriff, or he's just completely uninformed, because he's had to walk it back. So he was forced to apologize because there were photos that came out showing a 14-year-old girl who had bruises on her wrists because they zip tied her so hard. And there was an adult who was detained that told news outlets, quote, "They kicked me, they punched me, they stepped on me." This is just sick. And if we think that because Tom Homan is in charge, it's going to get any better, that's just BS. That's just not going to happen. They're going to hide it. They're going to, keep it under wraps. They're not going to be as brazen about it and, putting it out in all these what I call deportation porn videos anymore. But it's not going to be like, they're out there playing patty cake. And they've also been caught lying about whether or not they're providing due process to immigrants. That's not going to change either, I can guarantee you. So last week, there was a Trump-appointed judge who slammed DHS for using the excuse that one of their holding facilities isn't big enough for these immigrants to meet with their attorneys. I'm not kidding. That was the excuse they used. So in her ruling, the judge wrote in part, quote, "The Constitution does not permit the government to arrest thousands of individuals and then disregard their constitutional rights because it would be too challenging to honor those rights. Defendants allocated substantial resources to sending thousands of agents to Minnesota, detaining thousands of people, and housing them in their facilities. Defendants cannot suddenly lack resources when it comes to protecting detainees' constitutional rights. Putting aside the debate about whether Whipple is in fact a holding facility, the Fifth Amendment's due process protections do not depend on whether the place of detention is called a holding facility or a detention center. Any conclusion to the contrary belies elementary Fifth Amendment due process jurisprudence." So, in a nutshell, she's saying, just because you chose a facility that isn't big enough doesn't mean you can just go, oh, well, we don't have to abide by the Constitution and, give them, their constitutional rights under the Fifth Amendment and deny them due process. It's like, that's not their problem. You chose this facility. If it doesn't work for that and you can't give them the due process and allow them to meet with their attorneys, find another facility where you can facilitate that. And then over the last weekend, it was reported that a Marine veteran, a guy named Stephen Sari, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Saari. He was held without charges for 6 hours. And they denied him access to an attorney. So like I said, this isn't going to change. And check this out. So Trump's Gestapo even made a copy of this guy's cell phone records. They had no warrant. He did not consent to that. And they just did it. And the reason that they arrested him, you are not going to believe. Sari went to visit the site where Alex Preddy was murdered, and immigration agents were there, Trump's Gestapo, and they thought he was an undercover agent. These are the most inept and corrupt people on the planet. That is such a bad combination. It's bad if you're inept. If it's bad if you are just an idiot. But when you are also corrupt, when you also have nefarious motives, just a recipe for disaster. So this is what we're dealing with in our country. Oh, and I didn't even mention the other case where they shot that other poor woman 5 times and then were bragging about putting 7 bullet holes in her and totally lied in that situation and said, oh yeah, she tried to work with other people and box us in, and then she hit us with her car. No, all the video evidence shows they hit her. They have body cam footage, they have other videos, And it has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, not only were they not boxed in, not only was she not in any way, shape, or form threatening them, they were the aggressors. They ran into her purposely, and then they shot her after saying, "Do something, bitch." Seems to be their MO, right? Seems to be they curse at women and call them names an awful lot. It's almost as if DHS and, and Kristi Noem are hiring a bunch of hateful, misogynistic, racist, corrupt, sexist pricks. Anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear about more of their lies, and I can pretty much guarantee there will be. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, as I said, so other people know what's going down. Please donate if you can. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.